The river flowed dark beneath a leaden sky, carrying with it the cold of the mountains and the heavy silence of a merciless territory. Mist coiled through the trees like a veil, and the wind carried the scent of water, fish, and danger. On the rocky bank, a starving fox watched from a distance, motionless, patient, calculating every move as a massive bear slowly fished in the shallow current. Each breath of the fox was measured. Her body trembled not only from hunger, but from tension. She knew that the fish meant life, perhaps even her own survival. But she also knew she was standing on an invisible line that separates hunter from hunted. The bear, enormous and calm, seemed to ignore her until the moment it no longer did. For an instant, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of freshly caught fish straight to the fox's nose. Instinct overpowered fear. She stepped forward, then again, moving too close, too fast. In that moment, the entire forest seemed to hold its breath. In a single motion, the bear lifted its head. Its eyes met the fox's, and the air became as heavy as stone. What followed was sudden. A violent surge forward, water exploding into the air, paws crashing against the muddy bank. A dark trace appeared on the rocks, small, subtle, but impossible to ignore, as the fox tried to retreat far too late. When the river resumed its steady flow, the silence was harsher than any roar. The fox had made a fatal mistake, not out of malice, but out of desperation and hunger. And there, between the mist and the constant sound of water, remained the ancient law of the wild. In the realm of giants, one wrong step can cost everything. In the wilderness, danger is rarely loud. It often arrives quietly, carried by wind, hidden in mist, and disguised as opportunity. Along a cold mountain river, life moves in delicate balance. Predators hunt, prey survive, and every creature must understand the invisible boundaries of the land. For a starving fox, those boundaries become a matter of life and death. On the riverbank, a massive brown bear fishes with slow, deliberate movements, unaware, or perhaps intentionally indifferent to the small red figure watching from the rocks. To the fox, the fresh fish represents more than food. It represents survival. But in nature, hunger can blur judgment, and desperation can push instinct beyond safety. As mist drifts through the trees and the river flows relentlessly onward, tension builds beneath the surface. Every step the fox takes carries risk. Every breath the bear exhales signals its immense power. What follows is not a story of cruelty, but a stark reminder of how unforgiving the wild can be when a single mistake is made. This is a slow, atmospheric tale about limits, instinct, and consequence, where survival depends not only on strength, but on reading the land correctly. Through cinematic visuals and immersive river soundscapes, you will witness how one wrong move can tip the balance between predator and prey in a heartbeat. We are not here to sensationalize nature, but to reveal its truth. Beautiful, brutal, and deeply unforgiving. The forest does not judge, it simply responds. If you appreciate deep, emotional wildlife storytelling, subscribe to Silent Wild Stories and turn on notifications so you never miss a new tale from the wild. Please leave a like to help this video reach more nature lovers around the world. And tell us in the comments your country and city. We love knowing where our viewers are watching from. Now, let the mist surround you. Listen to the rushing river and follow the fox into a moment that will change everything. The mountain river moved without pause. carving its way through rock and pine as it had done for centuries. Its dark current glistened beneath a low grey sky, carrying shards of mist that drifted along the surface like breath in cold air. The forest around it was silent in a way that felt deliberate, a stillness that only belonged to territories ruled by powerful predators. On a slick rocky bank, the red fox stood motionless. Her coat was thin from hunger, her ribs faintly visible beneath damp fur. The wind tugged at her whiskers, bringing the sharp scent of water pine and fresh fish. Every muscle in her body was tense, as if the river itself were pulling her closer. In the shallow current, the massive brown bear fished slowly. Its broad back rose above the water like a moving cliff, droplets cascading from its fur in silver trails. Each movement was deliberate, patient, the rhythm of an animal that knew this river belonged to it. The fox watched from a careful distance, eyes locked on the bear's claws, gripping a freshly caught fish. The sight made her stomach twist. Hunger burned inside her, dull but relentless, a reminder of how long it had been since her last meal. Mist rolled across the river in thick waves, sometimes hiding the bear entirely, sometimes revealing it in fragments. A shoulder here, a powerful leg there, a wet snout breaking the surface. To the fox, the predator seemed both distant and dangerously close. She shifted her weight slightly, feeling the slickness of the stones beneath her paws. One misstep could send her sliding into the water, into the domain of something far stronger than her. Still, the smell of fish drew her forward like an invisible thread. The bear paused midstream, lifting its head. For a moment, the forest seemed to inhale. The fox froze instantly, ears flat, body low. Time stretched thin between them, stretched by the sound of rushing water and drifting wind. Then the bear returned to its task, claws tearing at the fish with slow, crushing power. The tension eased, but only slightly. The invisible boundary between them remained, sharp as a blade, even though no line was drawn on the ground. The fox took another cautious step along the bank, just enough to see more clearly. Her tail flicked once, betraying the conflict inside her. Instinct warned her to stay back. Hunger urged her to move closer. Every breath felt like a gamble. Above them, clouds pressed low over the mountains, dark and heavy with coming weather. The river roared on, indifferent to both hunter and prey. And between the rushing water and the silent trees, a fragile balance hovered. One that could shatter with a single wrong move. The river kept speaking in its own ancient language, a deep, constant roar that filled the air and drowned every smaller sound. Mist drifted low across the surface, curling around stones and clinging to the bear's wet fur. The forest watched in silence, as if every tree understood that something dangerous was about to unfold. The red fox shifted again on the slick bank, her paws trembling slightly against the cold, wet rock. Hunger pressed harder now, sharpening her senses but dulling her caution. The smell of fresh fish was almost unbearable, wrapping around her like a promise she could not ignore. In the water, the massive brown bear continued to feed. Its powerful shoulders rolled with slow, methodical movements, and every tug of its claws sent ripples spreading across the current. Droplets of water fell from its fur like silver beads, vanishing instantly into the dark flow. The fox studied every detail of the bear, its rhythm, its posture, the way it planted its weight against the river's pull. She was not reckless. She was calculating, trying to read the predator as if it were part of the landscape itself. A cold wind swept down the valley, stirring the mist and carrying the scent of pine, water, and blood from the fish. The fox inhaled deeply, and for a moment her body seemed to lean forward on its own. Instinct whispered that this was her chance. She took a careful step along the rocks, testing each surface before committing her weight. The stones were slick with spray from the river, and the current hissed dangerously close to her paws. One misstep could pull her into the water and into the bear's domain. Midstream, the bear paused again, lifting its massive head. Its small, dark eyes scanned the bank, settling briefly on the fox. The moment stretched painfully thin. The forest held its breath, and even the river seemed to roar more softly. The fox froze instantly, body low, tail still, ears flat against her head. Every muscle locked in place. In that suspended heartbeat, the invisible boundary between them felt sharper than steel, even though no line was drawn in the mud. Then the bear looked away, returning to its fish with slow, crushing movements. The tension eased, but only on the surface. Beneath it, something had shifted. The fox felt it as much as she saw it. The margin of safety had grown thinner. Standing on the edge of that boundary, the fox faced a choice that every wild creature must make sooner or later: retreat and live another day, or press forward and risk everything. Above them, dark clouds gathered over the mountains, and the river thundered on, indifferent to what was about to happen next. The river roared louder as the wind shifted again, driving cold mist straight toward the bank. Water smashed against rocks in restless rhythm, spraying fine droplets into the air that clung to the fox's fur. Above them, clouds rolled low across the mountains, thick and heavy, as if pressing the entire world closer to the ground. The bear remained midstream, anchored against the current like a living boulder. Each movement of its massive body was slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial. Claws worked steadily through the fish, sending small fragments drifting downstream before disappearing into the dark water. From the bank, the fox studied every motion. Her hunger sharpened her focus, but also narrowed her judgment. The smell of fresh fish flooded her senses, drowning out caution. Her breathing grew shallow, quick, controlled. The breath of an animal standing on the edge of a decision it could not turn back from. Mist thickened between them, sometimes swallowing the bear completely, then revealing it again in broken silhouettes. A shoulder, a dripping paw, the dark shape of its head above the current. To the fox, the predator felt both distant and unbearably close at the same time. She took another careful step along the slick stones. The rock shifted beneath her weight, sending a faint tremor through her legs. Water hissed inches from her paws, rushing past with enough force to drag her into the river in an instant. Still, she did not retreat. Midstream, the bear paused once more. Its head lifted slowly, water streaming from its fur in glittering lines. For a heartbeat, its gaze drifted toward the bank, heavy and unreadable. The forest fell into a deeper silence, broken only by the river's relentless voice. The fox froze instantly. Body low, tail rigid, ears pressed flat. Every muscle locked in place as instinct screamed for stillness. The invisible boundary between them felt thinner than ever, stretched tight like a wire ready to snap. Then the bear looked away, returning to its fish with slow, crushing movements. The tension loosened on the surface, but beneath it, something had changed. The fox sensed it instinctively. The margin of safety had not just shrunk, it had shifted. Driven by hunger and a dangerous confidence, the fox took one more step forward, closing the distance that separated her from the river. Mist curled around her legs, and cold spray dampened her face. She was no longer simply observing. She was crossing into a realm that was not hers. Above them, thunder rumbled faintly over distant peaks, a low warning that seemed to echo through the valley. The river thundered on, indifferent, and between the rushing water and the silent trees, the fox now stood beyond fear, balanced on a line where instinct, desperation, and fate were about to collide. The river seemed to grow louder, as if it sensed what was about to happen. Its dark current crashed against the rocks with violent rhythm, spraying cold droplets that hung in the air like a fine mist. Above, clouds pressed low over the mountains, heavy with an unspoken warning. On the bank, the fox stood dangerously close, closer than she had ever dared to be. Her body was tense, every muscle coiled like a spring. Hunger burned inside her, sharper now than fear. The scent of fresh fish wrapped around her senses, drowning out caution. She could almost taste it, and that illusion of certainty pulled her forward. Midstream, the massive brown bear fed slowly, its broad back rising and falling with each breath. Claws tore methodically through the fish, sending fragments drifting into the rushing water. Droplets of river streamed from its fur in glittering lines, vanishing into the dark current. Mist rolled thick between them, sometimes swallowing the bear entirely, then revealing it again in broken silhouettes. A shoulder, a dripping paw, a massive head bent over its catch. To the fox, the predator felt distant 1 second and unbearably close the next. The fox took one final step along the slick rocks. The stone beneath her paw shifted slightly, sending a faint tremor through her body. Cold water hissed inches from her legs, ready to pull her in at the slightest slip. Still, she did not retreat. In that moment, something changed. The bear paused midstream, its head lifted slowly, water streaming from its fur, and its small dark eyes locked onto the fox. The forest fell into a suffocating silence, broken only by the river's relentless roar. Instinct screamed through the fox's body. She froze instantly, ears flat, tail rigid, muscles trembling. But it was already too late. The invisible boundary had been crossed, and the balance of power shifted in a heartbeat. With a sudden, explosive movement, the bear surged forward. Water and mud erupted into the air as its massive paws crashed against the riverbed and the bank. The sound was thunderous, a shockwave of power that rippled through the valley. The fox tried to retreat, but her footing betrayed her. In the chaos, a dark trace appeared across the wet stones, thin, subtle, quickly washed by the river's spray. The fox vanished from view in a blur of motion and mist. No prolonged struggle followed, only the heavy splash of water, the bear's deep breaths, and the relentless voice of the river. When the current settled and the mist drifted back into place, the scene looked almost unchanged. The river flowed on. The pine trees stood silent. Yet on the rocky bank, that small dark stain remained for a moment. a quiet reminder that in the wild, one wrong step can end a life in seconds. The river resumed its ancient voice as if nothing had happened. Its dark water rushed over stones, erasing footprints, smoothing torn mud, swallowing every sign of the chaos that had just unfolded. Mist drifted low across the surface again, curling gently around the rocks where seconds earlier the world had shattered for a small red fox. On the bank, the massive brown bear stood motionless for a moment, water streaming from its fur in silver lines. Its chest rose and fell slowly, deep breaths steadying after the violent surge of power. There was no triumph in its posture, only the calm of an animal that had acted purely on instinct. The fish it had been eating lay half submerged in the shallows, carried slightly downstream by the current. Small fragments drifted away, turning with the flow before disappearing into darker water. The river took back what it was given, indifferent to both predator and prey. Along the slick stones of the bank, a thin, dark trace lingered for a brief moment, a subtle streak that the spray had not yet washed clean. It was not graphic, not violent to the eye, but unmistakable to those who understood the language of the wild. Nature rarely announces its costs, it simply records them. The fox was gone. No body remained in view, no prolonged struggle echoed across the valley. In the wilderness, endings are often sudden and quiet, swallowed by water, wind, and time. What remained was absence, heavy, undeniable, and final. Above the river, the clouds slowly loosened their grip on the mountains. A colder, clearer light seeped through the mist, revealing wet pine needles, glistening rocks, and drifting vapor. The world did not mourn. It simply continued. The bear shifted its weight and stepped back into deeper water, returning to its rhythm as if the moment had already faded into memory. Its claws slipped beneath the surface again, patient, methodical, unstoppable, the embodiment of survival in its purest form. From the silent forest, no other animal came forward. Birds stayed still in their branches. Even the wind seemed to pause. The valley held its breath, honoring, in its own way, the fragile life that had crossed its limits. Yet beneath this stillness lay a deeper truth. The fox had not died because the forest was cruel. She died because the wild is exact. Every boundary has a cost, every mistake carries consequence, and every creature must live, or die, by its understanding of those rules. As the river carried mist into the distance, and the bear disappeared deeper into the current, one quiet lesson lingered above the water. In the realm of giants, courage and hunger are not enough. In the wilderness, survival belongs to those who know when to step back. And the price of stepping forward can be everything. The river keeps moving long after every conflict has passed, carrying mist, memory, and consequence downstream. In its endless flow lies the true character of the wild, impartial, relentless, and exact. The fox did not fall because the forest was cruel, but because nature demands perfect awareness from every creature that lives within it. In this valley of water and stone, survival is not granted. It is earned through instinct, restraint, and respect for invisible boundaries. The bear remains, patient and immense, shaped by the same rules that ended the fox's life. It did not hunt out of hatred, nor defend out of anger. It simply acted as the wilderness requires. Around them, the silent pines, drifting mist, and cold light of dawn remind us that every life here is fragile, temporary and deeply connected to the land that sustains it. As the current fades into the distance, one truth lingers above the water. In the realm of giants, hunger is not enough, and courage can become fatal. The wild does not warn, does not judge, and does not forgive. It only responds. And for those who watch from afar, this story remains a quiet lesson carried on the river's voice. In nature, one step too far can change everything.